following program is a presentation of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio in iTunes.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market updates and trading strategies. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block. With your host, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com and co-hosts Mike Tosaw from KnowYourOptionsInc.com and Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. The Option Block is brought to you by Options Express. Don't spend time worrying about your broker. At Options Express, security, stability, and account protection are the most important responsibilities to our customers. Secure account access, enhanced financial protection, entrusted with over $7 billion in customer assets, established financial stability. Options Express lets you trade with confidence. Stocks, options, and futures, all in one account. Trade with a specialist. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio to open your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
All right, and that rocking tune means it's time once again for the Option Block, your bi-weekly source for all things options related. And we're going to do something a little bit different on today's show because it is a bit of a milestone for us here. We're going to take a look back on the show and maybe a look forward and a little bit of reminiscing because it is indeed Option Block episode 200. It's hard to believe we've come so far so quickly, but that is indeed the case. This is the 200th historic episode of the Option Block, so we want to take some time to look back on that with you, the listener, and of course, the rest of my all-star panel. And joining me for our 200th episode spectacular, starting off with the man beaming in all the way from St. Charles, Illinois, the man from the mountains himself, good old Uncle Mike Tosaw from Know Your Options Inc. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show for this glorious 200 episode spectacular.
Oh, always exciting to be here, and just reading what you had sent out to us today, the fact that we have been on longer than both Full House and Different Strokes, that's pretty exciting. A lot of people saying, what you talking about?
Exactly. And also joining us on today's 200 episode spectacular is the man beaming in all the way from the great state of Maine, the rock lobster himself, none other than Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Andrew, welcome back to this glorious occasion to you as well.
Yeah, 200 shows. That's a fantastic one. Hard to believe, although I got in about halfway through the whole cycle. So
yeah, you got a bit of a bit of a reprieve. You jumped in about halfway through, so it's about 100 or so for you. Of course, you guessed it on a few early on, I think, too. So
I did. But I wasn't quite the option lobster then. I was another incarnation of myself prior to the
an earlier incarnation that we shall not speak of here.
Right. Not right now. Not until that company goes public. Then we can speak about it.
There we go.
At the 300th episode, we'll talk about the many incarnations of
I like
Andrew.
it. I like it. I like where you're thinking, Uncle Mike Tosaw. And joining us, returning, I guess you can call him returning guest, over holding down the OX hot seat is good old Alex Jacobson from Options Express. Alex, welcome back to the show to you as well.
Thanks, Mark, and congratulations on 200. Great work.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's lasted so long, but it's fun. We love doing it. I think the listeners love it. It's a unique program. There's no one else out there really doing this. Certainly has not done it to the level that we've done here in terms of number of episodes and everything else that we've done. So maybe we'll get into that a little bit. We'll get into, instead of a trading block, we'll get into a little bit of what we'll call, I guess, a celebration block. All right, and welcome to this 200th episode celebration block. A little chance for us to pat ourselves on the back a bit on the show. I think well deserved. It has been quite a run so far, and certainly looking back at our network here on the Old Options Insider Radio Network, this is certainly the program with the most episodes that we've put out. We have some shows that have been running longer, like our flagship show, our Options Insider Radio interview show. That's been around. That was pretty much the first ever options podcast that launched back in January of 2007. We did some test shows in late 2006, and that one's been running for 5+ years, but certainly that's much more infrequent, like once a month or so. So that one certainly doesn't have the same episode frequency, episode number that we do here on the Old Option Block. And I'm sure probably if you look at not just certainly our network is the largest and pretty much the only radio network for options traders, but there are other individual shows out there. And I'm sure I certainly can't think of any other individual options podcasts that would have anywhere near to this number of episodes, let alone more. So I'd imagine that certainly probably this is the most episodes of any options program in history, at least that I'm aware of. Maybe there's some obscure daily update show out there somewhere that I've missed. And if that's the case, I apologize to you. But for the most part, I'd say this is probably the most episodes of any options program going out there. If not, it's really far up there. So it's certainly something to say. And as I was chatting about this, and you alluded to it earlier, Uncle Mike, I was chatting about this with some of our team here at Insider, and our managing editor, Danielle, ran out, and she pulled together a list of some of the shows from pop culture history that we all know and love that this show has surpassed. Perhaps not in terms of pop culture status, but at least a number of episodes. And Seinfeld's up there. Magnum PI. Too bad Sebastian's not here for the old 80s references. But I'm sure he is a big Magnum fan. In fact, he's probably growing the Magnum stash right now for Movember. I
can whistle the guitar riff for you.
Yeah, I think everyone.
Dun, 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 dun.
Even some.
Dun, 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 dun.
We do have a pretty cool guitar riff on this show too, so we're holding our own there with Magnum, both in episodes and in guitar riffs. Of course, we're lacking in the cool helicopters and the sweet Ferraris to drive around. That's what he had, a Ferrari, right?
Yep. And the chicks. There are no chicks on the show either.
That's true. We have been a little lacking in that department, but other than that, I think we're pretty well represented.
You're not on the beaches of Hawaii. What are you going to do?
Yes, that's true. That's
so
true.
Much you can do.
We haven't taken the Howard Stern route yet of bringing on the strippers onto the show. I know he feels that they add to the radio. It might distract from an options focused show. Perhaps that's just me. And I'm sure
take on the naked straddle, naked option trading would take on a whole new meaning. That's for sure.
That's true. Maybe we need to set up a naked writing show, and we'll have some special guests and quotes just for that program. That'll be Option Block After Dark. No children allowed. Maybe that'll be a future incarnation for the program. There we go. But yeah, other old stalwarts, Matlock. I have no idea how we've eclipsed Matlock. That show was on forever, but apparently we have more episodes of Matlock, even The Cosby Show. And of course, if Sebastian was here, his favorite show, Golden Girls, which I'm sure he would love. And of course, even Three's Company, good old Larry and Jack and them, we've eclipsed them. So it's a bit of an interesting run here from a episode perspective. I was looking back at some of the, well, maybe you guys want to jump in here too. Mike, you've been on since the beginning. Andrew, you've been on since about halfway through. And Alex has just joined us recently. Of course, we should probably mention that too here. 200 episodes, a bit of a transition over there at OX, where Mr. Grigus, who has been our regular, he was the first one from OX on the show. He's been pretty much our regular go-to guy for a long time, has since switched to Mondays for most of the better part of the last year, and now is going to be moving on to some other roles over there at OX/Schwab. So we won't be hearing him on the podcast with quite as much frequency, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be upset about because they loved his Groupon talk and his writing puts on Tesla and his corn, discussing the corn during corn harvest season. So a lot of fun tidbits he could share with us. Maybe we'll take a look at Groupon above $3. So there we go. A good day for Mr. Grigus.
Where do the Groupon bulls go? Where do they go?
Yeah, they have no home now. There's no podcast for them anymore. There's no podcast for them. They had their one show on the net that would talk about Groupon.
I think it's all just a big front. I think he actually is just retiring because in reality he was probably short Groupon this whole time. And I think it's all just a big front.
Of course, we've had a lot of stock picks over the years from Mr. Grigus. a lot of great nicknames for Sebastian. I think Greasy Meatball is probably the one that stuck the most. Seabass, the most direct. I've lost track of all the others that I've hurled at him over the years. But I'm fond of the occasional nickname or two. Now we need a nickname for Alex. Now that Alex is going to be a regular on the program, we have the Uncle Mike, we have the Lobster, and then of course Alex. I don't know if you have in your long and storied options career. Is there a nickname that has clung to you that you preferred?
At the CBOE many years ago, my email was Dr. OEX. So I don't know if that's dated, but
Dr. OEX
doesn't trade much. But I still have an email address that's DROEX. So I don't know if we could pull that out.
Maybe we'll call him. Maybe we'll call you Dr. OEX. Maybe we'll call you Mr. 15. How about that?
There you go.
That's getting even more obscure for the 3 listeners who know what the heck I'm talking about there. But yes, Alex, it's good to have you on the show as someone who can certainly pontificate about the history for, I think, more than all of us combined. A lot of great, we had some great guests early on in the run of the show, too. I think a lot of people liked the show we did with the NASDAQ guys and with Paul Gigante over there trying to shine some light on those alpha indices. Unfortunately, to no avail. Those products have since really withered and died on the vine. I'm not sure if Paul's even still over there. But, yeah, it was kind of an interesting product that we wanted to highlight. We try to do that a lot with this show and with this network in general. Find some interesting stuff that may be interesting to you, the listener, for your trading and discuss it a bit. And unfortunately, that one, fun episode, fun show, didn't exactly work out from a product perspective. We had a lot of other guests. I think some people have written in mentioning the episode where you brought on your client who was a state senator in New Hampshire, was it, Mike, who was also a diehard Apple Bull?
Yeah, Jim Luther. Yeah, that was a fun episode. It was the most unpolitical political interview we've ever, I think, in the history of all politics.
Yeah, we managed to steer clear of it with a great deal of skill, I should say, on our part. Is he still a diehard Apple Bull, or is he kind of out of it for the time being?
Out of it for the time being. It's not like he once was, but yeah, we haven't really, because he still has an account, but it's still not, he's not doing it's not like what it once was, where it's I'm not the certified Apple broker that I once was for him.
Is that a special designation? I know it's like Series 7, Series 63. Is there a Series A for this, or Series AP perhaps for the designated Apple broker out there?
I'll tell you what, in these last couple of years, I could have done Apple between the movement that I've had to do in Apple and Silver, if there was one, I could probably teach the class on it.
Of course, Apple having a good run today. We'll get to that in a little bit as well, and some interesting developments over the past few sessions from Apple. I think looking back at some other things from the show here, of course, a lot of great uncomfortable moments, most of them coming from the way of Mr. Sebastian. A lot of people brought up his frequent references / analogies / metaphors to the serial killer / rapist lurking in the closet. Often making our listeners squirm with that analogy. I forgot what he uses that analogy for some surprise lurking in the economic environment, but an uncomfortable one that he likes to remind our listeners about quite a bit. And a lot of just great fun.
Attention getter.
Yeah, that's true. It works. And I think a lot of just.
He's
great...
a specialist in that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yes, if there's one thing he excels at, it is getting attention. And of course, a lot of interesting stuff we've done over the years. If you want to look back, maybe no promises. Maybe if we have some time here at the Radio Network, maybe we'll cut together some sort of best of. Of course, that would require searching through 200 hours worth of Option Block episodes to cull some moments here or there. So no promises here whether our editing team could really manage that Herculean task, nor would I really want them to. But perhaps we can find something to for our listeners' appreciation there. Maybe some slight moments we could throw in there for a rundown. If you have just joined us over the past few months or even a few weeks, welcome to the show. If you are a longtime listener, well, we take our hat off to you. Of all those out there who've made it the full 2 years, I'm impressed. You have a great resolve, a great determination. You're not offended easily, and nor do you have high standards for your entertainment / education. So we thank you on all fronts.
Well, the other thing that you could do, I would say you could do the Sebastian outtake special, but that would just take longer than editing all of the shows.
Yeah, that would be. We did some of those for a while. We had some outtakes at the end of the show. Things that were perhaps off script or off kilter for the episode itself, we would cut to the end And we did that for a while, but then it got to just be too much of a hassle because there was so much of it that we left it out. But yeah, that'd be something fun to do. And I've been thinking about what we could do to add something new, something different, a twist to the show going forward. Obviously, we'll have Alex more going forward, so that will certainly be a different twist. And also, maybe I know we've had some interest in the past about having some live participation on the show from the listeners. And there's a lot of hurdles to jump through to get that to work properly. So I thought if we're going to do that, if we're going to go down that road and do that effort, we probably should make it, interesting for us and worth our while here. So I'm thinking maybe what we'll do is something along the lines, and I'll have to work this out how exactly we're going to do it, but maybe we'll set up a live listener question segment once in a while where we can bring on guests who really want to participate on this and ask some live questions on the air. Of course, there'll be a lot of caveats involved in that. You have to be available when we record this show, which is Monday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Time, so we can reach out to you, or you can join us live on that time. Also, it probably should be an OX customer. If you're not an OX customer and want to join us, by all means, jump on board, open an account, and then you can join us on the live show as well. Something interesting for our listeners to look forward to. I know we have a lot of you out there who like to chime in and send us questions quite a bit. And if you'd like to be immortalized forever on the old airwaves, then let me know. We'll figure out some way to verify your OX status. Maybe I'll route you through the OX guys first to make sure you are indeed a certified card-carrying OX client, and then we can bring you on the show. Does it sound fun, Alex? We can talk to some of your clients live on the air.
It does, but, one famous Chicago podcaster, Steve Dahl, records his questions and then plays them back on the show. And just if you don't want to go live, we could even do that. And that way we could we lose a little spontaneity, but we get an opportunity to do our homework before we.
What fun is that? What fun is preparation, question. Alex? When you could be live, and when I say live, I of course mean live to tape, like how we do this show, which is we record it live amongst each other, we record it live to tape, and then we edit it. So if there is some spontaneous, horrible outburst from a potential guest, or the question is just not appropriate, it can always be stricken from the old record. So keep that in mind. But if you want to join us for something like that interests you, shoot us an email, questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or via our comment form at theoptionsinsider.com. You can get us that way as well. You can tweet us directly over we're at Options on Twitter, or maybe you get in touch with your OX account rep and say, hey, I'm looking into doing this. How do I do that? And they'll reach out to us. There's a lot of different ways we can do that. And if we get some interest and get some interesting questions, we'll bring you on the air and you guys can join the show live. Something kind of fun. Something mixing it up for the next 100 or 200 episodes or so. And I think that's it for our little quick celebratory block. Just want to take a few minutes out of our day here to look back and on the 2 years that were. It was indeed October 2010. And it's funny because, OX had approached me for years about putting a show on our network that was OX themed, and we'd always ran into some roadblock in one way or the other. The people they wanted to get on couldn't make it. They couldn't schedule the time. They couldn't find the resources. So it always kind of fell through. So when they approached me yet again back in mid-2010, I said, yeah, okay, we'll look into it. But, we've been down this road with you guys, and something's always come up, so I'm not going to put much effort into it. But this time we were actually able to make it to go, and we took a different approach. We didn't just say, hey, send us your education guys. We took a different approach. Brought guys on the trading desk like John and Tim and those guys. We brought guys like KYO and others who were affiliated and kind of had a nice, diverse array of opinions. We got Sebastian on there, and that led to Andrew. So it was nice. It wasn't just a show with one representative from one firm, but really a broad array of opinions and voices on the options market. I think that's what's given this show its longevity, I think, and its uniqueness. It's really that array of voices, that diverse array of voices we have here on the show, and we will endeavor to keep that going forward. But now we're going to roll right into a belated trading block.
The trading block.
All right, and welcome to the trading block. This is, of course, 200 episodes down. You know what the trading block is by now, I would hope. If not, you can figure it out. But, of course, it was an interesting day on the street. A lot of whispers early this morning, pre-session, about some potential compromise there in Washington, as well as some pretty strong earnings. That combination really served to bolster the market today. Most of the major indices up about 2% or so, with the The Dow being the one laggard, up about 1.7%. Not surprisingly, vol coming off, down about almost 1.25 points to 15.24 on the day, about 7%. Of course, this is kind of funny. We've talked about this a number of times on our various shows, and just kind of the asymmetry of volatility, where we have obviously a day of volatility. It's volatility to the upside, but vol nonetheless. That, of course, will contribute to that realized vol number we've been talking about a lot here on the show, and how the realized versus implied discrepancy, if you have a little bit more realized vol, it makes that number a little bit more valuable, a little bit more meaningful, I think, to a lot of the traders out there, because there's something actually underpinning it. And yet here we have a day with a strong rally, and of course vol is crushed. Even when you had the weekend coming in, and of course vol was probably up there. That level of VIX was probably a little bit too high. We're not going to sustain that in 1 to 2% moves a day. But of course today we had a 2% move, so I think you could say our VIX was about fairly priced going into that. What do you say about today's vol action, Andrew?
Yeah, I do think the vol is fairly priced. I don't think we were going to see what we saw last week, but there you go, 2% down, 2% up. So I guess we can see it.
It is funny how the 2% up just doesn't count.
Much more worried about the downside.
Yeah, it's that asymmetry of vol we always talk about here. 2% up apparently is not vol from a market's perspective.
The skew was super. It's super flat. And nobody's really coming for, they certainly weren't coming for any out of the money puts. And they're just letting the vol drive. They're just driving it down. I think today feels like it's almost a little oversold, sort of going into Thanksgiving, where you get the last, half a point or something, and VIX eroding, or they're marking their sheets forward already for tomorrow, going into Wednesday. I think it feels like they're starting to take the holiday out already.
Gee, what a surprise!
I don't think 15 VIX or 16 VIX was too expensive for how unstable the market's been, actually. So maybe a little oversold today. Look at the VXX product. It was trading 37 on Friday. It's trading below 32 today. So they definitely they hit that product with the ugly stick for sure. So. Which is why we love it, because it's reliably junky.
There's some money to be made in that junk every now and then.
There is. Just when you just feel like they can't get enough of it, that's usually the time you give it to them. But anyway, so yeah, I think I think 15's kind of fair, fair-esque. We're still kind of moving 1.5% a day.
Certainly, if we keep this up, it's certainly fair. If we can keep this 1.5 to 2%.
And who knows who's going to, belch something tomorrow, and then we're down 100 points again. So it's.
I love your technical terms, Andrew. That's fantastic.
Well, it seems like some politician makes a noise, and then the market rallies. I think it's funny, a little cynically, the president's in Myanmar, so I guess he's not going to make any announcements about the budget from there. So
that'd be something, huh? Make it all the way across the literal ocean, so they can't get at you right away. And then he announces his big compromise from Myanmar.
Right. I'm not trying to be super political there, but every time the guy opened his mouth lately, that's really good for the equity market. So
yeah, I think the big question everyone's asking now, obviously with the way they crushed vol and rallied the market today, I kind of think what the answer is being baked in. But is this pretty much it for a while? We're going to hang out in these doldrums and kind of vacillate maybe 0.25 percentage point a day or something like that until we finally get to the big compromise or no compromise event, and then we'll be off to the races again. So that's probably what people are baking in here. They're crushing it with the weekend, with the holiday weekend, and of course this fact that this is probably what they're banking on being the last big move, upside or downside, for quite some time.
Right, and then we just kind of coast through the end of the week. That's what it felt like anyway. So.
Speaking of big moves, it was a crazy week, or crazy couple of days, I should say. It feels like a week. It's only been a couple of days for that fruit company that Uncle Mike likes to watch and hold so near and dear to his heart. In fact, I shot him a message on Friday to see if he scooped any down at the 505 level. You could see just how many people were hovering at that 500 level. The people are just waiting at that 500 level to get back in. And Uncle Mike, I know you say you didn't get back in. So what have you made of these last few days worth of activity, A, and then B, maybe we'll get to that first, and we'll get into the second part of my question first. But what have you been up to over there in KYO land watching all this Apple stuff?
Well, it's definitely took a big jump today. This is this is a little bit too choppy for me to want to get in. Obviously, it would have been nice had I got in on Friday. I should have listened to we always have the angel and the devil on your shoulder, and you then came in and told me to go ahead and do it, even though I told you I wasn't going to do it till after Thanksgiving at all. But yeah, this has definitely been pretty choppy, and it wouldn't be surprised if we had a little bit of a pullback tomorrow with a 7% rally today. That was pretty crazy.
It's funny, I know a lot of market makers who are pretty much, they've been following the product flow over the past couple of years. They jumped into corn, now they're out into other products. A lot of them are into Apple. Now, again, that's kind of everyone's big main equity option, it seems like these days. And a lot of them were planning to close up shop for Nove expiration and then go away for the rest of the holidays and stuff. And now if Apple is your primary driver, you can't really do that. A lot of stuff, a lot of movement going on here, a lot of activity. If you let everything close out for Nove, you're going to really, looks like be missing some fun out here. And of course, Alex, you mentioned earlier your time back in the dark days of over at the CBOE when you were working on the OAX. How much does the CBOE wish, or how much do they miss an opportunity here to get that? I mean, they announced, what was it, a year, maybe two ago, the Apple VIX, and how much do they wish right now that they had somehow taken the steps to get that into a tradable product? Because a day like Friday would have been just a fantastic day to have a product like that live.
It's interesting. I had lunch with one of the product guys a couple weeks ago, and we actually use the quote they generate on the Apple VIX. We use all 5 of the stocks they quote here to generate condor ideas. So we found that quote very, very valuable. But my buddy in development at the CBOE said the reason they haven't brought it, in a sense, I think is very similar to why they didn't bring the VIX in the early years, is they're waiting to see that market develop more. I mean, VIX was around a long time before there was the product. And what VIX has done, Andrew pointed out both VIX and VXX, is it's created a listed trading community of volatility products. And I think, I won't speak for the CBOE, but I don't think there's a critical mass there yet of trading community for the single stock vol. I designed one when I was at the ISE, and the industry just hasn't seemed to embrace single stock vol in terms of the exchange traded community. One of the conversations I had with the development guy is, do you see people trading this? Do you, in your travels and stuff, see people trading this? And prior to coming here to OX Schwab, I lived in the institutional community, and I looked him straight in the eye and I said, it's huge. It's huge in the institutional community. And he looked at me and his mouth kind of dropped and he said, who's doing it? Because we're not hearing it coming off the desks, in New York. And I said, it's a concentrated stock. I have been on the desks of VC firms who don't technically own the stock, but whose community of investors own the stock. And, they got all of the collars they need on the actual stock price, but they trade vol. And one of the queries was, well, why aren't the New York desks, sharing that with us? And I think the answer is it's a profitable product. But an exchange product changes the profitability. A listed product changes the profitability of it. And I don't know when that product will get traction in the exchange community, but there are people out there who want it. And the 5 the CBOE built, Apple and Google, how much traction would there be in those if you had a robust, listed, two-sided, I have a bet up here with one of the product development guys on Apple versus Google, and the bet is 50 push-ups. And for those of you who know me, I couldn't do 50 push-ups in the rest of my life, which would be truncated by an attempt to do a push-up. And the PD guy is very fit, guy that, drinks shakes, these protein shakes all day. And he said 50 push-ups, that I picked Google over Apple. And if Apple wins, I have to quit, because I'll never deliver 50 push-ups. But I think there'd be surprising traction in the Google, Apple. The CBOE had IBM and Amazon and Goldman Sachs. I think there'd be surprising traction. I just don't think they have the critical mass in the trading community yet.
It would get there. I mean, like Andrew was pointing out here in the little chat on the show chat here that of course they need a future for that. And they need something. They need some underlying going, something beyond what they have now, which is just that once a day, end of day, disseminated abstract VIX number for Apple or Google or what have you. But it's interesting nonetheless. That's something that I know a lot of our listeners would be very interested in having, and they could follow a similar path to what they did with VIX. Launch the futures first, let them get some traction. Now that in the early days of VIX, there was just a lot of pushback from the market making community. No one wanted to touch that thing. No one wanted to be the layoff pit for everyone else in the marketplace for volatility. It seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. They've since cracked that nut. They've figured out how to do it, and there's a lot of interest, obviously, and a lot of these guys out there. I mean, how many market-making firms, their primary equity option is Apple now? I mean, if they could get a handle on an Apple volatility product, that would be enormous. And, of course, for go ahead.
I think there's a more pointed question, which is how many market-making firms are really vol desks today? And the answer is all of them.
Oh, all of them, definitely, yes.
Yeah, last time Andrew and I were on, we were talking about this, and it was a while ago, and I was talking about the fact that when VIX first came out, both Blair Hull and John Stafford said they didn't want to see a listed product without a futures contract because, in essence, they'd be the seller of last resort, and they didn't want to sell vol when it was, back in my youth, 6, 7, and 8. Because they knew everybody would be buying it, and
very one-sided flow.
Yeah, it's a different world today, and VIX was around for probably a decade before we had a listed product on it, and I don't want to second guess the CBOE. Very, very smart people over there, but I think it's the same thing. I think they're looking for more traction, more acceptance before they bring those products. As I say, we use the number here real time, every minute of every day, to generate credit put spreads, credit call spreads, and condors. And in fact, I'm building, that's our Idea Hub product. I'm building Idea Hub now out into futures options. And one of the things I was planning on using was the volatility from the old CBOE interest rate indexes, which they still calculate, but they brought the options trading down. So now I've got no robust place to get volatility data. I've got to simulate it out of ETFs, and I'm making this conversation too complicated, but I think there's a big appetite for it. Is it going to be an overnight success? No. In the same way VIX was, a 10-year overnight success, and now it's a huge product, and it's in the language.
I hope, hopefully for their sake, they don't take another decade of development, because I don't think they have a decade left over there before some other big corporate events start perhaps dictating their futures for them. VIX is essentially the last big product class they have over there that they have direct control of and will maintain control of. That license won't expire in 8 or so years, so they need to keep building on that like they've been trying to. And I probably should have meant what I said earlier. I was talking about end-of-day numbers. I was thinking of the skew numbers they put out once a day. They they continuously disseminate the VIX numbers for Apple and Google and whatnot. So
but they should. Here, I'll lobby. They should bring a product.
Okay, you lobby.
No, I mean they should bring a product on it, and it would be simple. Make it a weekly product. You had, I'm going to lobby for two things at once here. You had George Ruhana on the other last week, and he made a terrific, insightful observation.
The cash settled.
And we, the industry, have been kicking that around for years. And as best as I can tell you, the only reason we don't have it has to do with entrenched politics. I mean, if you built the option business today, if instead of April 73, you started the option business today, everything would be weekly. Third Friday is clearly obsolete. That's back from when it took, a week to do settlement, and you wanted to have the things on statements for the end of the month. Everything would be weekly. Probably everything would be cash, and the industry needs to take a bold step and move that way. And cash settled vol products. When you look at the speculative community, you look at the risk management community, you look at the premium harvesters, there'd be a terrific place for them. You look at people with concentrated stock, look at investors who hold a lot of this and they've got the position collared already, but they want to generate some extra income. Being able to sell a cash settled vol product off it without losing my position would be, could have huge implications.
Yeah, so I think for a lot of our listeners and for us here to chew on, I think what Alex is referring to is an episode of our Options Insider radio show that we did back a few weeks back with George Ruhan. I think that went up last week, where he made that exact suggestion I think he was specifically referring to weeklies, but that can be applied to a new VIX product as well, where it would just essentially be a weekly cash settled option that's so much easier for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. There's a little bit of nuance that has to be done around the last few minutes of the settlement day and how that would work in the expiration day and how that would work out. And might be a little bit of gamesmanship that can go on there. But once you figure that out once, you can apply it to all the different products. So yeah, I think a weekly VIX product on Apple and anything else like that would just be a huge, huge home run. Speaking of, or perhaps the opposite of a home run, there was some more dire, I think, terrifying, horrifying news to a lot of us on the panel here last week. That is, of course, that Hostess is going bankrupt. So, Alex, Andrew, Mike, no more Twinkies for any of you. No more Ding Dongs or Devil Dogs or any of that kind of stuff.
They got a reprieve today.
Yeah, I heard the Bimbo. That makes the story even better. Bimbo Bakery.
Yeah, well,
Bimbo bought the ho-hos.
Actually, the judge sent them to mediation, and I alluded to my size. I weigh around 300 pounds, and taking Twinkies and ho-hos off the market is like taking Lipitor off the market for me. I mean, you just simply can't do that.
I was hoping I would hope some of those brands would survive in some other form with some other company, but still, it is kind of a funny thing and shows the precarious nature of labor in this country as well, where one threatened strike from one small bakers union. How big can that union be in this day and age in America? Was enough to. This company is already this company was already not doing too well anyway, and that was the straw that broke its back. Of course, Intel, one of the few names down today as well. Their CEO is going to be retiring. Intel, a name that's near and dear to my heart. I traded it quite a bit back in the day, and I still keep an eye on it. Don't trade it as much anymore. It hasn't really been too much of a high flyer in recent years to really merit too much activity, but still not exactly a banner. Actually, they closed up today. They caught the wind that everyone else had at the end of the day, up fractionally, but they were down substantially earlier in the session off the news that their CEO is going to be retiring. And last but not least, Tyson Foods blowing past some estimates today, so that helped too. Really helped the market catch some wind in its sails towards the latter half of the session. So a lot of good stuff carrying on. And speaking of carrying on, we're going to carry on right now into the Xpress Block.
The Express Block, brought to you by Options Express. Options Express lets you trade where and when you want for every level of trading. From advanced charting, free daily trading ideas, and free educational resources, Options Express is the online broker for all traders. Best of all, Options Express allows you to trade stocks, options, and futures all in a single account on powerful yet easy-to-use trading platforms, including mobile devices. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio for your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
All right, and welcome to the Express Block. This is where the boys at OX, namely Alex, today take the reins of the show, and I get to sit back and relax my tired vocal cords. Alex, I know you were a late addition to the show today, but what do you have in store for our listeners to tickle their fancy?
Well, 3 or 4 quick things. First of all, if you are an OX customer, please look at the 2 new products, the Ideas Hub, which is the industry's first brokerage-based iron condor finder, and the new walk limit product. And again, in the time we have, I can't go into it in great detail, but there are tutorials on the site. Walk limit is especially cool because it lets you walk a spread from the midpoint down to the natural, the NBBO, and that's an OX innovation. We're actually building some tweaks into that so that potentially when the tweaks are done, you'll be able to preset the points you want to start the walk down from to the NBBO. Just to give you a quick example, if the market were $1 to $1.40 in a spread, most people who were going to sell this spread might put it in at $1.20 limit, hoping it gets filled. What walk limit does is it'll let you put it in at $1.20 limit. It'll flash the order to the exchanges. If a trade isn't done, it will drop the limit to $1.18, flash the order to exchanges, and walk it down to the dollar natural. Right now, that's the way it exists. It's going to be customizable. They're working on that now. The education team will be in Houston on December 1st, and then in Boca Raton on December 8th. It always seems to amaze me that the education team is never in Minnesota in December or January.
Where's the upstate New York episode or show, should I say, in January or February?
That was a common trait at the CBOE and the ISE as well. In fact, when I started at the CBOE, the marketing department had the nickname of the traveling golf team. So it just seems that, like volatility, it's inverse to temperature. But that's what's going on here. 2 reminders to all option users. Short week this week. Options will stop trading at 12 o'clock Chicago time on Friday. Obviously, we're closed on Thursday. And one other little bit arcane reminder, wash sales. If you've got, you mentioned Groupon earlier, if you're thinking of getting out of a trade, booking a loss, keep in mind that the 31-day window for wash sales. If you're thinking about a wash sale and maybe want to re-enter the position still this year, you're coming down to the wire.
That's why we have you on, Alex, for the arcane minutia that you bring to the table that our listeners love, because that is a healthy tip and one that slips by us. We are winding towards that point where you have to start thinking about all the fun tax consequences and considerations of your trades, which is always a fun time of year for all of us.
Yeah, and if you're a Groupon or a lot of those names that had very disappointing years, potentially Facebook as well, just keep in the back of your mind the wash sale rules. You essentially need to be out for a month. You can't replace with an option. The IRS is very good about this in terms of identifying these. The new 1099s that brokerage houses are sending out showcase watch sales, and we get a call from customers periodically that say, "Why are you so good at this?" It's like giving the Internal Revenue Service a reason. Just realize it's that season.
You're just giving them more ammunition, Alex. That's what we need. All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Alex, or should I say IRS man, Alex, the G-Man. Maybe that'll be your nickname, the G-Man, going forward. How about that?
Great.
There we go. All right, thank you for that. And now, because we are running along, we were chatting a little bit earlier in the show about some milestone or other, I can't remember. Then we're going to dive right into Around the Block.
Around the Block.
All right, and those car horns means it's time for our final segment, Around the Block. This is where we look ahead to what the future holds in store for the market and what we're watching during those sessions. And as Andrew and as Alex just alluded to, it is a shortened week coming up this week. So that, of course, first and foremost, to all of our degenerate premium buyers out there, keep an eye on that. I'm sure you're already starting to feel the sting in some of your positions, given what we saw today in the market, that decay is starting to come off quite aggressively. We've said this many times on the show. It's going to come off aggressively. They'll probably have, if we stay at these levels and don't really move too much over the next few days, we'll have most of that priced out in the next couple of days. And of course, the flip side of that is a lot of our listeners fall into the degenerate premium selling camp, and that is where, of course, you have to be careful. If you wait too long, or if you don't race, you see a lot of people come in all the time, and still, even in this day and age, I've been doing this show for 2 years, still hear this feedback from people all the time. Hey, I raced to sell something, and it turned out it was Friday afternoon going into a weekend or a long holiday weekend, and they were then not liking exactly the levels they were putting on, and they, of course, got run over by some weekend risk. So just be cognizant of that. If you're towards the middle and latter half of this week, you're already going to be trading probably on next week's levels already. The decay is going to be taken out. Market makers are not fools. They know how this stuff works. And so if you're out there rushing to hit bids.
We're already in midway through Tuesday.
Exactly.
Today.
And it does feel like that in many ways. So if you're out there scrambling to sell weeklies or any of these other products or any other products out there, just be cognizant of that. A lot of that decay is already starting to come out. So don't chase it. If you miss your levels, there's always another time to trade. Don't put on something on Wednesday afternoon or Friday afternoon that's already rolled to Mondays or Tuesday levels, because then you're just giving away a weekend for no reason. And we have all seen what can happen on a weekend in recent months, and it could certainly be disastrous.
That's selling your juice into the hole. You don't want to do that.
Exactly. You don't want to do that. And what else don't they want to do coming up this week? What else is catching your eye, Andrew, for the rest of these shortened, truncated sessions?
What's great is the Wall Street Journal, on the cover, there was a big thing about, how technology stocks were in this big correction, and today they clearly uncorrected. I'd be interested to see if all these junky, kind of big technology names like the Ciscos and the Microsofts and the Oracles kind of make a little comeback here, because they've definitely been beaten down really hard the last couple weeks or so, and the news wasn't so bad on them. So I'm just, Intel, I guess it's having a hard time trying to find its way. If they could successfully segue into selling chips for handsets and stuff like that. But the other technology companies didn't seem to be doing too bad of a time. So I'm looking at the sleepy old technology stocks and see if they can rally. Vol is kind of in a no man's place for me right now. I'm mostly hedged out most of my short vol today, so not much left for me there. That looks real interesting. We kind of had the big move from Friday till today, and and that's kind of it. The only other thing we're looking at is just the gold volatility, so darn cheap.
Love.
It's like it can't ever move again. It's very weird.
Have you ever met any long vol that you didn't like, Andrew? You degenerate premium buyer, you.
12% in GLD is pretty low.
Yeah, you're right. That is a relatively historically low, and also just from a recent movement perspective, not too bad as well. So something for our listeners to keep in mind as we enter into this shortened holiday week. All right, and thank you for that, Andrew. And now, Uncle Mike, I know the big A is taking up a lot of your time these days, but I know you're also keeping an eye on the metals and on Ford and a few other names that are wetting your whistle, piquing your curiosity. So what are you focusing on for the rest of this shortened holiday week?
Well, for this week, I think I'm not expecting I wasn't expecting too much movement, but 200-point move in the Dow today kind of gets my attention, so to speak. We're watching just a lot of things. FXI, we like what we want to continue to monitor what's going on with China. Just a few basic names, nothing too earth-shattering this week. I prefer not to trade in shortened weeks like this. The week of Thanksgiving, the week after Christmas, just not my cup of tea, and I'd prefer to just not do it. But we still monitor things because that's what we do. Then the other thing that I'm doing is my annual Thanksgiving recommendation. By now, you should have sold all your pumpkin futures, and it's time to get long Christmas tree futures and stay away from turkey, because this week it has no future.
Is that
Feel
part
free
of your,
to throw the tomatoes now.
Is that part of your 50% hilarity guarantee that you gave on the last show?
I think that's part of the wrong 50%.
That's what I say. That's not working out. That's not working out too well for you if that's part of the guarantee. Hopefully, there's another one coming down the road to salvage you,
to balance it out.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, you're falling into the Kavanaugh 48% camp, I think, going forward.
Oh boy, that's all I need.
All right, and last but not least, Alex, what's catching your eye for the rest of this week? I know you're pulling a lot of data these days for all your trade recommendations. Anything out there really sparking your interest?
Yeah, in line with Andrew and Mike, it's going to be a thin week, and it's probably going to be a thin end of the year. So I think you're going to see volatility surprises. One of the kind of bad news pieces about Dodd-Frank is there isn't as much capital in the market-making ecosystem. And I think you're going to see days like this where there's some good news, but all of a sudden you're up 200. Little bad news is going to take you down 200. I think you're in thin markets. And the great thing about thin markets is those are option traders' delights. If you're got an idea you want to come at from the long side, you think Apple's going to get back up to 700 in a thin market, best way to do it is via the options market. Buy something a little longer dated, a little deep in the money. You can always spread against it if you get a disappointment. but I think we're going to get surprises because of the lack of liquidity in the marketplace as a whole, and that's one of the downsides of Dodd-Frank. So that's I'd be careful around here.
Yeah, I think the combination of the Twinkies bankruptcy and the shortened holiday week have led to very thin markets this week, and hopefully you can probably see where I was going with that joke a mile away. But I'm not sure where that falls on your 50% scale, Uncle Mike. Listeners will have to be the ultimate judge of that. But unfortunately, that's going to do it for the Around the Block segment. That's also going to do it for this 200th episode spectacular. Hard to believe we've reached that milestone, but there it is, 200 episodes of the Option Block. And before we go, I always like to check in with my cohorts here on the old All-Star panel to see what they're up to. Starting off with you, Andrew, what's coming up in the land of the pit for this shortened holiday week?
The rest of the holiday week, it's a shortened option pit this week. No gold classes, but we're doing all our pit reports. We'll have a vol report on Friday morning, unless we actually have some action. We have our big volatility, trading volatility. Probably take this class so you can learn how to use Alex's funky product at OX, and what's the method behind part of the madness probably there is you help using volatility to direct how you put some trades on. So Mark, Sebastian, and Jim Bittman from the Option Institute will be talking about that. And we will also probably be replaying one of our look at events at optionpit.com. We gave away basically a free day of Option Pit Live today, and we'll probably do that maybe once every 2 weeks or so people can dive in and see what a real, similar to this broadcast, we actually talk about option trades that happen in a, well, most of the time intelligent way, and looking for new trades as well. And how we go about finding those trades. So that's all about what Option Pit's about, a lot of what Option Block is about. And that's kind of at least our Thanksgiving schedule for this week.
All right. Thank you for that, Andrew. Go and enjoy the rest of your holiday festivities, sir. And we will see you next week.
Thank you. And actually, Mainers do eat turkey. They just don't stuff a lobster.
And Uncle Mike, what is coming up in the land of KYO that may interest and or intrigue our listeners?
Well, on the night of the 27th, the webinar train takes off again. We're going to have the boys from E-mini Executors coming onto the train, talk about what's going on over there with how they do trading in the futures world. So we're excited about that.
I recently bumped into those guys for the first time, and we don't do as much on the future side as we do here at Options Insider, but we're always looking for more interesting stuff on that side of the fence. So it should be interesting to see what they have to say. And I like just what they say in their name, Executors, because that really is the name of the game for any trade, particularly when you're trading futures for the first time. Execution is so key. So many people get hung up on commissions and other things, but really the name of the game is execution. So at the very least, I like their name. I like what it stands for. So don't know much else about them, but hopefully we'll find out on the webinar train in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
All right, and Alex, you already mentioned to us the upcoming segments or sessions, I should say, OX has going in Boca. Anything else coming up you want to let our listeners know about before we sign off for this holiday week? You said you have the walk limits. Any other tweaks going on in the old idea machine over at OX?
Just trying to build ideas out for futures options. And that's something hopefully we'll have early next year.
And how is the uptake? How has the response been from the clients on so far on the existing launches of the? I keep calling it the Idea Machine. What is it called? What's the actual?
Idea Hub.
Idea Hub. I was close.
Idea Hub. The premium harvesting section has been broadly embraced.
Shocker.
Yeah, and the rest of it is gaining good acceptance, but we're looking at tweaks. We're looking at adjustments in all of it, and given the big growth we saw this year in futures options trading, we're looking at expanding it out to futures options as quickly as we can get it built.
Well, idea generation certainly is the name of the game these days on the brokerage side. So if you can offer your clients a little bit better mousetrap, and certainly doesn't hurt if it has some good premium harvesting ideas. I know a lot of the clientele, a lot of our listeners tend to fall on that side of the fence. So I'm certain they're happy with that. But like I said, that's going to do it for this 200th episode of the Option Block. But before we go, I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to thank all of you out there. The listeners really have made this show what it is and have made it possible and have allowed us to stay at it for 2 years and counting now and do 200 episodes, a bunch of fun live events and other great things for you guys, the listeners, over the years. And we like to keep that going, so if you have ideas for things you'd like us to talk about, maybe new segments, new ideas, whatever it might be, or if maybe you'd like to participate in that live listener call-in segment I touched on earlier at the top of the show, let us know. Reach out to us. You can reach out to us at theoptionsinsider.com via our comment form on Twitter. We're just at Options on Twitter or on Facebook. Search for Options Insider. There's a lot of ways for you to reach out to us or to shoot an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com. Let us know what you'd like to see, or let us know if you'd like to participate in that live segment, and we'll see if we can get you booked for an upcoming show. But until next time, we're going to sign off here for our 200th episode spectacular. Hope all of our listeners have a great holiday week, and we'll see you next time right here on the Option Block.
Become a part of the Option Block. Just visit www.theoptionsinsider.com/forum to post a question for the hosts. You can also submit questions to twitter.com/optionblock or leave a voicemail at 312-544-9356. Make it interesting and your question just might make it on the air. The Options Block is property of the Options Insider Incorporated. All rights reserved. The preceding program was a presentation of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com/radio or search for Options Insider Radio in iTunes.